Welcome to the Language Alchemy Podcast, where we transform your communication to create the life and relationships you truly want. I'm your host, Alejandra Siroka, and I help multicultural individuals, couples, and change makers move beyond surface level politeness and conflict avoidance to have authentic, value-based interactions that actually resolve issues and deepen connection. If you're tired of rehashing conversations in your head, walking on eggshells, or feeling misunderstood in your most important relationships, this podcast will give you a new way forward. And if you've been thinking about getting support with your communication, visit languagealchemy.com to find out which transformative communication program is most beneficial for you. Today's episode is the second in our mini-series on passive aggression. During the last episode, we looked at many passive-aggressive communication examples to help you understand what passive aggression really is. We also talked about why this communication habit happens so frequently. If you're not completely sure about what passive aggression exactly is, or if you would like to learn more about what it is and why it happens, then I highly suggest you listen to the first episode on this podcast series, and that is episode number 182. Listen to that one before you listen to today's episode. However, one of the language alchemy values is that you are the authority of your own experience. So choose your own adventure. You will receive helpful tools no matter which episode you check out first. Today, we are going to talk about 5 major impacts passive aggression has in our relationships. And then I am going to give you 5 transformative communication tools to start transforming passive aggressive dynamics in all your relationships. As you listen to this episode, you may want to take notes because I can assure you that you are going to find useful, actionable items you may want to implement as soon as you finish listening to this episode. Let's have a brief refresher of what passive aggression is. It is a mismatch between what someone says and what someone means. And while their words may seem perfectly neutral, polite, or nice even, when you receive them, you feel a sting and ouch, and you feel the need to defend or protect yourself. So now, let's start talking about the impact of passive aggression on our relationships, because passive aggressive communication creates a particular kind of damage in relationships. In my work as a transformative communication teacher and coach, I see that there are 5 major specific impacts passive aggression has in our relationships. For one, it erodes trust. When you can't trust that someone means what they say, the foundation of the relationship begins to crumble. You start second-guessing every interaction, looking for hidden meanings and ulterior motives, even when there are nothing but good intentions and 0 hidden agendas. Secondly, passive aggression creates confusion. The person on the receiving end often doubts themselves. They sense something is wrong, but they quite can't name it. They might blame themselves, or they may wonder if they're being too sensitive. The third big impact, and I see this in close relationships like close friendships, romantic partnerships, and work partnerships, is that passive aggression prevents genuine intimacy or depth. Real connection requires authenticity. When communication is indirect and layered with hidden messages, it is extremely hard to feel that you can be close with the other person. So you start sharing less, or measuring how much and what you talk about, or you keep the relationship at the surface level, or maybe you distance yourself from the relationship altogether. Impact number 4 is that it builds resentment on both sides. The person using passive aggression feels unheard and misunderstood because they haven't communicated directly, And the recipient of the passive aggression isn't the mind reader. Remember what I shared in the previous episode about passive aggression being so subtle? The thing is that there's very little chance that the recipient will know exactly what is meant by what was said or by what wasn't said. So the person using passive aggressive communication gradually resents the recipient. And the person on the receiving end can feel manipulated and start thinking that the other person has ulterior motives they are not addressing in the open. And in time, the recipient of passive aggression can feel resentful of the other whom they now perceive as manipulative or controlling. When passive aggression becomes an established relational dynamic, both people end up resentful. The real issues don't get addressed. And if they don't work on the resentment with support, the relationship may fall apart. Finally, passive aggression models unhealthy communication. When children grow up witnessing passive aggressive communication, they learn that this is how conflict is handled. The pattern can perpetuate across generations unless you work on it. I know this firsthand, as I grew up in a household with a lot of passive aggression. And to this day, I still catch myself saying something that is passive aggressive, especially if I'm tired, stressed out, or under-resourced. And when I realize I said a passive aggressive comment, I then need to have a repair conversation about it. And if you don't know what repair conversations are, then listen to episode 137 and 138. Episode 137 is called Apologize Like an Adult. And episode 138 is titled Saying Sorry is Not Enough. In my work as a communication coach, I had several couples who have come to me, and when we have our initial consultation to see if we are a good fit to work together, I hear them say something like, "We never fight, but something feels really off." And when they say that, I know we'll have to work with transforming passive aggression into direct and skillful communication. Let me give you an example of a couple who work with me with this very issue of passive aggression. Let's call them Keiko and John. John would frequently make jokes in front of friends or family. He would say things like, "Oh, don't mind Keiko. She's always late. I call her my rock star. I've learned to tell her events start an hour earlier than they do, and even then, she makes me wait." Keiko, of course, didn't find these comments funny at all. She found them hurtful. But when she would try to talk about how hurt she felt, John would say things like, "Come on, it was just a joke. They're friends. You're too sensitive. I'm just teasing you because I love you. You are my rock star." This is classic passive aggression. John was expressing his frustration about Keiko's lateness. Keiko had an in-time orientation to time. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then listen to podcast episode 173 to discover your time communication type. But instead of John having a direct conversation about how he felt when he waited for Keiko because she was late, he was publicly shaming her under the guise of humor. And when Keiko wanted to address how she felt about his shaming her, John would deflect by saying she was overreacting. This kind of passive aggression is a form of gaslighting. Keiko was told her perception was wrong, that she should just laugh it off. But her body knew the truth. She felt a pang in her stomach. She felt really small and humiliated. Over time, John's passive aggression created great distance between them because there were many things that John didn't know how to talk about directly and resorted to passive aggression forms of communication. As years went by, Keiko stopped sharing vulnerable parts of herself with him because she didn't trust him to be able to hold her experience with tenderness. And of course, this impacted John because Keiko seemed to be pulling away. And he didn't know that his communication was contributing to Keiko's distancing. This is the cost of passive aggression. It's insidious. It operates beneath the surface. And if we don't work to transform this negative form of communication, it can gradually create a series of tears in the relationship that eventually can reduce relationships to thread. Now that you understand the impact of passive aggression, I'm sure you're saying something like, okay, Alejandra, tell me what I can do to begin transforming these patterns. So let me give you 5 transformative communication tools you can put into practice right away. Tool number 1, trust your body's wisdom. Your body knows when something is off, even when your mind tries to rationalize it. If you feel that sting, that tightness in your stomach, that confusion after an interaction, pay attention to it. Don't dismiss it. Practice asking yourself, what am I experiencing in my body right now? Trust that. Tool number 2, name the pattern without judgment. When you notice passive-aggressive communication, you can gently name what you are experiencing. Don't say to the other person, you're being passive-aggressive. Instead, say something like, I'm noticing that your words say one thing, but your tone of voice seems to be communicating something else. Please tell me more about what you mean. The more specific you are, the more I'll be able to understand you. Or you can say, I sense there might be something you're not saying directly. I want to understand what you're feeling. The key when you address passive aggression is to approach this with curiosity rather than accusation, so that you can invite a deeper and more authentic dialogue. Tool number 3, create safety for direct communication. If you notice that the people in your life use passive aggression to communicate with you, then it would be important to say to them, and to say it many times, not just once, that you'd like to have a relationship in which both of you can communicate your needs, your wants, your opinions and feelings, and even uncomfortable ones, with clarity, directness, and openness. And then ask if the other person would like that too. This request invites collaboration in creating a new way forward. Tool number 4, reflect on your own pattern. It's important to acknowledge something that might be uncomfortable to hear. Most of us have used passive-aggressive communication at some point. The key here is to know how often we do it and whether we have a pattern of communicating with passive aggression or not. So take some time to reflect on your own communication. You can ask yourself these 4 questions. Do I ever say I'm fine when I'm not? Do I agree to things and then find ways to avoid following through? Do I use sarcasm or jokes to express frustration? Do I give the silent treatment when I'm upset? If your answer is yes, now you are aware that you have a pattern of communicating with passive aggression. Awareness is always the first step to transformation. We can't change what we don't know. Cultivating awareness is a fundamental language alchemy step. And if by listening to this episode, you now know that you have a pattern of communicating with passive aggression in your relationships, then consider what feels uncomfortable about communicating directly. Does it feel unsafe? Not allowed? Too risky? If so, you need to work on this. Because I could just tell you now, well, just say to the people you feel close to that you want to be able to communicate openly about what feels hard for you to say out loud. But you know what? For you to be able to communicate that so clearly and so directly, you have to be able to transform the discomfort that emerges within you in the face of direct communication. And this is what I help people do. So reach out to me if you would like my support. If you're on my mailing list, email me directly. And if you aren't, go to languagealchemy.com, tool number 5. Ground yourself in your values. Instead of getting caught in the confusion of passive-aggressive dynamics, anchor yourself in your values. Ask yourself, if I value honesty and authenticity, how do I want to show up in this relationship? If I value compassionate communication, what conversation needs to happen? If I value integrity, what does it require of me to address this pattern directly? When you ground yourself in your values, you create a clear path forward and hold yourself with self-respect. Plus, you're no longer spinning in the confusion of mixed messages, and you are moving with intention toward relationships that you truly want to create. And now, let's recap what you've heard in this episode. In today's episode, the second one about passive aggression, we examined the impact passive aggression has on relationships, eroding trust, creating confusion, preventing intimacy, building resentment, and perpetuating unhealthy patterns. Then I gave you 5 transformative communication tools. Number 1, trust your body's wisdom. Number 2, name the pattern without judgment. Number 3, create safety for direct communication. Number 4, reflect on your own patterns. And number 5, ground yourself in your values. Remember, understanding passive aggression is the first step to transforming it. In the next episode, we'll dive into what you need to learn if you tend to communicate with passive aggression. If this episode resonated with you, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Your reviews help others find this podcast. Imagine if every person in the world could communicate with clarity, confidence, and compassion. We would have a different world. So please leave a review and help others get access to this podcast. Also, share this episode with someone who might benefit from understanding passive-aggressive communication. Be like Audrey, a dear listener who turned her ex-husband into a Language Alchemy podcast listener, and now they're communicating so beautifully because of what they're both learning from the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and a special thanks to all the people who are listening from South America. Thank you to everyone listening from Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. Until next episode, and as we say in Argentina, ciao ciao! Original music by Gary Lapo. You can find all links in the show notes at languagealchemy.com.